So, you're thinking about starting a building project. Well, listen up. The single most important part of that project, the decision that makes or breaks everything, happens way before anyone even thinks about laying a brick. It's the work you do before the work even begins, and today we are going to break down exactly why it's the absolute key to success. I mean, seriously, we've all heard the horror stories, right? A friend's home renovation, maybe a new building going up in town. They all start with so much hope and excitement. But then somewhere along the line, things just completely go off the rails. Why does that seem to happen so often? Well, it almost always comes down to one of these classic project nightmares. You've got budgets that don't just creep up, they explode. Timelines that seem to stretch on forever. And maybe the worst part of all, you finally get to the finish line and the building, it just isn't what anyone actually needed or wanted. It's so stressful, it's unbelievably expensive, and you know what? It is almost always avoidable. But what if there was a better way? What if there was a map you could follow? A proven step-by-step roadmap to steer clear of all those pitfalls and just head straight for a successful outcome? Well, that map actually exists, and we're about to walk through the first most important steps together. That map is called the RIBA Plan of Work. Now, RIBA stands for the Royal Institute of British Architects, and yeah, their framework is the global gold standard. But don't let that fancy name scare you off. Seriously, think of it less like some dense textbook and more like a really, really good GPS for your project, whether you're building a tiny home extension or a giant skyscraper. And here it is. Here's the secret. We all love to jump ahead to the fun stuff. You know, the cool designs, the excitement of construction. But the real magic, the bedrock foundation for everything that comes after, happens right at the very beginning, in these early stages of preparation and briefing. If you nail this part, you're basically setting the whole project up for a win. Okay, so how does it work? It all kicks off with what's called stage 0. And this is crucial. Before you even dare to think about what you're going to build, you have to get crystal clear on why you're building it. This is kind of the soul-searching stage. Why are we even doing this? What's the real point? And this quote it hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? You could build the most gorgeous, perfectly crafted building in the entire world. But if it doesn't solve the real problem, if it doesn't meet that core need you started with, it's a failure, and a really, really expensive one at that. So in stage 0, you're doing all this critical thinking up front. You're not talking about how many windows a room should have yet. No, you're defining what success actually looks like. You're asking, does this project even make business sense? What are the big picture limits on budget or location? And maybe the most important one, is this whole idea even possible? Answering these tough questions now saves you a world of pain down the road. Just look at the difference here. This is it in a nutshell. A vague brief like, we need a new office, that leaves everything up to chance. But a strategic brief? That's powerful. It has measurable goals, like improving productivity by a specific amount, and it connects to the big picture, your core values, like sustainability. This gives the entire team a bright, clear target to aim for. All right, so once you've absolutely nailed down the why, you can move on to stage 1. This is the reality check. This is where you start translating that big strategic vision into a concrete, tangible plan. You're finally turning that why into a what. And the main thing that comes out of this stage is one of the single most important documents you'll create, the official project brief. You got to think of this thing as the constitution for your project. Everybody, the client, the architect, the engineers, everyone is going to come back to this document over and over again. And a truly strong brief has to get specific. This is where you lock in the hard numbers for the budget. You define your quality standards and sustainability goals. You list out exactly what kinds of spaces are needed. You even start looking at what could go wrong with an initial risk assessment. This is not a fuzzy wish list. It's a detailed instruction manual for success. And look, when we talk about that budget, it is so important to see the whole picture. A lot of people miss this. As you can see here, the actual construction cost is often only about 60% of the total price tag. You've got to factor in all the professional fees, taxes, a contingency fund for surprises, everything. Having a realistic budget from day one is absolutely non-negotiable. Okay, so let's pull all this together. We've gone through the nitty-gritty of stages 0 and 1, but let's get back to the main point. Why does all this early stage, deep thinking work matter so much more than pretty much anything else? Because it's a direct antidote to those nightmares we talked about at the beginning. The proof is right here. The data is totally clear. Projects that put in the time and effort to create a strong strategic brief are way more likely to finish on budget, to finish on time, and to end with a happy client who got exactly what they needed. It is a direct cause and effect.
So if you only remember one thing from all of this, let it be this idea. All of that early strategic work, defining your why, detailing your what, that is the real foundation of your project. It's the blueprint you have to create before the architect ever draws the first line of the actual blueprints.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. It doesn't matter if you're planning a new kitchen or a new corporate headquarters. You have to ask yourself, what is that strategic foundation that I need to build before I even think about starting to build? Get that part right, and believe me, you are already halfway to success.